March 24th, 2026. We are in the 5th year, day 29, since the beginning of the full inversion. Welcome. I greet you to the Situation Report. In today's report, we will look at mutual attacks, but we will also look at painful hits on the Russian oil infrastructure, which was far away from the front, and much more. Yesterday, a fire was reported at a fuel and lubricant storage facility in the town of Krim in Russia's Rostov region. Available footage shows a large fire with significant smoke. There is no official information on the cause so far. Of course, we know why it's burning. There was a drone attack. The affected facility appears to be a depot for so-called fuel and lubricants, meaning fuels like diesel or gasoline, as well as lubricants. Such storage facilities are an essential part of any military logistics, as they ensure the supply of vehicles, generators, and other equipment. If you think about it, almost everything needs diesel, gasoline, or lubricants. It doesn't matter if it's a vehicle, a generator, a mast, a radar, or a position, like an anti-aircraft position, for example. All of these things that can move need lubricants or fuel, and in the worst case, even both. And without them, it drastically shortens the lifespan, or even prevents their use entirely. The Rostov region has a very special function, since it is located directly on the border with Ukraine and is responsible for about 70 to 75% of all supplies for the Russian soldiers in Ukraine. It also serves as a rear area for Russian forces. Important supply routes to the front run from here. Accordingly, facilities of this kind are generally of operational significance. Yesterday, for the first time, clear ground footage of the damage after a Ukrainian drone attack on the Russian port of Primorsk appeared. The images show burning facilities in the area of the oil depot, accompanied by heavy smoke, just as we saw earlier in another location. Additionally, satellite images, including those analyzed by Radius Voboda, confirm that significant parts of the infrastructure were hit. At least 5 large storage tanks are reportedly on fire. However, the fire continues to spread. The attack reportedly occurred at night and was carried out with Ukrainian long-range kamikaze drones, mainly the FP-2. The distance to the front line is about 1,000 kilometers, which highlights the range and target selection capabilities of these systems. The largest Russian oil port on the Baltic Sea and a central hub for crude oil exports. With an annual capacity of up to 75 million tons, the facility is one of the most important hubs for Russian energy exports to Europe and the global market. Accordingly, not only the storage infrastructure is concentrated there, but also the loading facilities and connections to pipeline systems. Which specific facilities besides the visible tank farms were hit is currently unclear. However, what will be crucial is whether, in addition to storage capacities, loading facilities or technical control systems were also damaged, as the actual restriction of operations depends on this. The attack fits a pattern of economically important targets, especially related to the Strait of Hormuz closure being hit deeper within Russia, so that the Ukrainians want to prevent the Russians from continuing to make money from the currently increased oil price. While individual burning tanks by themselves do not necessarily mean a permanent disruption, the impact can increase significantly if there are repeated hits or damage to critical junctions. Ukrainian forces from the Safari Assault Regiment, which is part of the Joint Assault Brigade Lyud of the National Police, were able to destroy a Russian position in the area of Konstantinivka using anti-tank mines. Relevant footage shows the preparation and subsequent detonation in the target area. Apparently, laid or specifically placed anti-tank mines were used, which are deployed against fortified positions. This approach naturally indicates a planned operation, quite obviously, because the explosives are not only used defensively for blocking, but also offensively to attack positions. This isn't the first incident, but you only see this once or twice a year. The first time I saw it was on the Russian side. Konstantinivka is located in the Donetsk region and has been a significant section of the front for some time. The city is still contested at the moment. There is renewed focus here, especially regarding the fighting around Bakhmut and nearby defensive lines. Fighting in this area is often characterized by smaller tactical operations, where individual positions are specifically targeted and eliminated. The use of mines at the front, especially in this form, indicates short distances, improvisation, and a certain mobility of the forces involved. Recent reports indicate a further shift along the front line. Sections in the transition area to Dnipropetrovsk Oblast and areas north of Kujapole along the Yancha River are particularly affected. There, parts of the areas previously controlled by Russian forces are no longer considered secure, but are now described as contested or back under Ukrainian control. This is not marked on the situation map yet, as I am still waiting for a few more geolocations, but the reports are already increasing significantly. This shows continued Ukrainian pressure on Russian lines in this part of the front, particularly around Kujapole, where maneuver warfare has dominated the terrain for some time. When control shifts along river lines like the Yancha, it has immediate effects on local defensive positions, since natural terrain features are often used as reference points for lines. The continued advances suggest that Ukrainian counter-operations in this sector have not come to a halt. Rather, there is pressure from a gradual erosion of Russian positions, where the focus is less on a rapid breakthrough and more on systematically softening and shifting the front. If we take a close look at the map, we can see the two defensive lines again, including the line between Hill 133 and 154, by the way. Hill 133 is very heavily fortified. But as we've heard in the latest situation reports, the Russians have already managed to take up positions at the foot of the hill again and are putting a lot of pressure on the Ukrainians here. However, they have the advantage of forcing them into a kind of funnel. But things look different a bit further north here. In the Ukrainian counteroffensive, there is virtually no change. It is assumed that they have now reached somewhere down here, but I still have no proof of that. Accordingly, I won't be able to change it on the situation map. The Russian company Bureau 1440 has received the launch of the first 16 satellites of the Rassfeld 3 project. This is a planned communications network in orbit, which is functionally classified as the Russian counterpart to Starlink. The goal of the program is to establish its own satellite constellation for broadband communication. According to current information, a total of 250 to 300 satellites are to be launched into orbit in the coming years. The start of commercial services is planned for the year 2027. With this project, Russia is trying to build an independent infrastructure in the field of satellite-based communication. Systems of this kind not only enable civilian internet access, especially in remote regions, but also have military relevance, for example, for communication coordination and data transmission in operational areas, which the Russians are currently lacking. And this is noticeably felt at the front. The current scope with 16 launched satellites marks an early phase of development, but significantly larger constellations are required for comprehensive and high-performance coverage, as already exist with comparable systems. Accordingly, the speed of further expansion will be a decisive factor for actual operational capability. In a recent meeting, Putin admitted that the dynamics of the Russian economy have worsened at the beginning of 2026. In the published videos, you can see how he assesses the corresponding measures and also tries to improve the economic situation. The government officials and those responsible present reacted visibly reserved. Concrete measures or structural causes were not discussed in detail during the meeting. Instead, everything remains at a general demand for stabilization or improvement of economic development, without mentioning the solution for it. The context is crucial here. Russia remains under pressure from Western sanctions, while at the same time significant resources are tied up in the war, which seems never-ending. Both factors affect the core economic level, from industrial production to investments and even state budget priorities. And with that, I would like to thank. Thanks for visiting. Special thanks to unpaid coach Ferdy Meyerhofer. Please subscribe, like, comment, and see you in the next report.